Now, our final speaker tonight is Jonathan Halevi. He is founder and director of the Canadian Centre for Intelligence and Analysis, a senior researcher of the Middle East and Radical Islam at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, co-founder of the Orient Research Group, former advisor to the Policy Planning Division of the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and a retired IDF intelligence officer. Mr. Halevi is a special consultant to the Terror Victims Litigation Project, which represents U.S. citizens harmed by terrorist attacks in the Middle East. He is also a fellow of the American Center for Democracy and a frequent guest on the Sun News Network.
ISIL, ISIS, or IS, we can call it caliphate. This is the true meaning of the Islamic State. We are talking about the caliphate. And we came here tonight to talk about the terrorism aspect of the caliphate. And when we're talking about the terrorism, not all Canadians agree with the definition of terrorism, and specifically with the two attacks that occurred last week. I just brought an example of what Jonathan Kay wrote 2 days ago in his editorial. He asked a question about the attack in the parliament and whether this attack really changed the reality here in Canada. And it's very interesting to see what he's saying, what his arguments are. When looking into the quantitative evidence, it's just 2 casualties since 2001. Not too many, just 2. And he called the attacker insane man with a deep knowledge of Islam. So by the way, I just informed today that the RCMP have issued a press release in which it was said that the attacker, they found a video of the attacker explaining his Islamic motives in the attack in Parliament. And later, he went on saying that, explaining that the power of video that was so immense and YouTube, that what really caused us, Canadians, to be agitated about terrorism. So if you look into the premises of Jonathan Kay, and you would see that if the death toll, he talked about the death toll of just 2 casualties since 2001. He didn't count the foiled terrorist attack since 2001. When you really examine terrorism, the threat of terrorism, it's not just the successful attacks of the terrorists, but also the potential damage that could be made, that could be caused to Canadians, like the Toronto 18. We all know what was behind it and what they plan to do here in Toronto and in the Parliament in Ottawa. The Via Rail, hundreds of casualties maybe could be victims. Victoria Legislature and others. He talked about insane man. So if this guy, the attacker, didn't represent Islam, who really represents Islam? So Jonathan Kay should disclose it. These terrorists are not representing Islam, which means ISIL, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, Hizb ut-Tahrir, Ansar al-Sharia. So we have hundreds of millions of Muslims. They are not representing Islam. So who is really representing Islam in the eyes of Jonathan Kay? So do we really agitate it only because YouTube? That's all? So what also Jonathan Kay is saying to us, that these videos, all the videos that's on YouTube, and believe me, I watched thousands of them. And you see the repeated atrocities, all kinds of atrocities, exactly as you would see the documentaries of the World War II, the Nazis, exactly the same pictures. So, and all of these Muslims, worldwide, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Caliphate, hundreds of millions, they cannot understand the simple message of peaceful Islam. So all of them, that's of course unreasonable. If you look into the platform of the Muslim Brotherhood, you would see that there is no difference between the Muslim Brotherhood and the Caliphate, the Islamic State in Iraq. They both talk about the Caliphate and establishing the Caliphate. Yusuf Qaradawi, the spiritual leader of Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, he also speaks about Caliphate and taking over Europe by jihad. And we see that the Caliphate is being like a magnet for thousands of Muslims from all around the globe, even here from Canada. And there is another, as you see, export, a Canadian export to the Middle East. Most of them, by the way, Sunnis, and one of them here is Shiite, affiliated with Hezbollah, who was involved in the terrorist attack in Bulgaria. According to official data of the RCMP CSIS, more than 130 Canadians went abroad to join terrorist activities, including in Syria and Iraq. About 80 returned to Canada. And this is the number of converts to Islam who were involved or still involved in jihad. 13 converts to Islam. And you see the two that carried out the attacks in Ottawa and south of Montreal. 2 planned attack in Victoria. 1 carried out suicide bombing attack in Algeria with an explosive belt. 1 was described as would-be suicide bomber. 6 joined ISIS in Iraq. 2 of them are brothers from Calgary. And 1 was killed in Dagestan. All these numbers since July 2012. This is one of the converts. I don't know his real name, but you can find him online. And I want to bring ISIS, the Caliphate, from a Canadian perspective, from a personal perspective of this guy, of this convert. He converted to Islam in 2010. He was born Muslim. He was born Muslim because, you know, according to Islam, everyone is born Muslim. So, and then he became Christian because of his parents, and he reverted to Islam. The goal is crystal clear. We will expand. It's not just, the struggle is not confined to the Middle East or Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, or Israel. No, this is only the first phase. Later, they're talking about Europe and America. That's why we are at war. And look how he, by the way, it's an online chat. He was asked questions and give his answers. And he was asked about his family. So if you call for attacks in Canada, to call to Muslim Canadian to attack targets in Canada, so how that goes with your family? And he said very simply, halal for you to kill them, which means it's permissible for you to kill them. So I have a family, but you can execute them. And I swear by Allah, I would not hold anything against you. Their blood and property are halal, permissible. Later he was asked about his sister, if she is going to be caught and be sold as a slave. And he goes in line with the ideology of the caliphate. He has no problem with that. He can be sold, he can do nothing about it. He accepts the rule of Allah. And then he was asked about the religion of peace. And you see, this is a religion of peace. When you kill the disbelievers and the apostates, you have peace. And he gave also example why the beheading is according to Islamic law. And the example is taken from the beheading of the Jews of Banu Qurayza in Arabia. And of course the RCMP should be destroyed by Allah. And here we can see tweets from his account that was, by the way, suspended by Twitter a week ago, calling to Muslim Canadian, to true Canadian, to launch attack against Canada on Canadian soil. And there is another one. This guy, Abu Dajan al-Muhajir, he's Muslim. Of course, he's a born Muslim, not revert. And he was one member of the group that met in an apartment in Calgary. And from this apartment, from this particular apartment, you see how many members went to jihad, to the jihad in Iraq and Syria. One of them committed a suicide attack with a truck bomb, 1.5 ton of explosives in Iraq. More than 40 were killed in this attack. And the two brothers, the converts, are right now in Syria, from the same, all of them from the same apartment. It's extremely important to listen to what he said on his blog about the motives and how he became radicalized. They met in the apartment for halakas, for lessons, Islamic lessons. And then they absorbed the ideology of Islam, and you will explain immediately what the meaning of that. And later, when everybody was strong enough in their faith, they decided immediately to go to the fields of jihad in Syria and Iraq. And he also, like Abu Khalid al-Kanadi, called other Muslims here in Canada to launch attack against Canadians. And the goal is the same goal, caliphate. And he mocked the RCMP. RCMP does not understand the process of radicalization of Muslims. For him, it's very simply. You don't have to look into other factors. It's just the Quran. The Quran is the book of inspiration for the Mujahid. And the number of Hong Kong jihadists is rising in Canada. And you have another indication for that. If you go to the Twitter to look into the accounts of the Canadian jihadists, they say, not one, some of them say that there are so many Canadians that it is time to open Tim Hortons cafe in Syria and Iraq. And it's only a matter of time. He said a few months ago that terrorist attack will be felt here in Toronto and in Calgary. So how the Muslim community reacted to the terrorist attack in Ottawa and in Quebec? Dr. Tarek Abdel Halim, he is an educator, scholar, resident of Mississauga. He founded an Islamic private school in Mississauga. And he's affiliated with the Salafi movement in Egypt. I translated it from Arabic, and it was removed from Twitter hours after it was posted. What a miserable and disappointing operation. And the reason for that is that only the soldier was wounded and the attacker was killed. That was the, he wrote it in the first, just in the first hour after the attack, and the information was not accurate at that time. What an eternal disappointment. Another imam from Mississauga, and it was Scarborough, sorry, and he blamed Canada for this terrorist attack. And see his rationale. This is because of the Canadian foreign policy in Iraq and Afghanistan. So it's not an insane man that carried out the attack. So here he said that, no, this is an Islamic reaction. And he called the government to take a neutral position against ISIS. So you have all evidence about crimes against humanity, mass killing of people, raping women, and he called the Canadian government to be neutral. And in a sermon in his mosque, by the way, he called his followers to feel zeal in their activity to spread Islam, not only in the Middle East, but worldwide, which means also in Canada. So you have to be neutral towards ISIS for what? To help us to make Canada Islamic? So let's look into the true Islam, okay? Not the true Islam of Jonathan Kane, which is fiction, but the true Islam as being taught in the mosque in Canada by true Muslims. Here is the Imam from Quebec, Ahmad Kendil, and he said in Al Rawda Mosque that all apostates should be executed in the Islamic State. So how much is it different from what ISIS is doing in Iraq and Syria? And he explained that the penalty for those who wage war against Allah, wage war, by the way, is also insulting Allah or Muhammad or the other prophets, and his messenger, and strive upon earth to cause corruption is none but that they be killed or crucified, or that their hands and feet be cut off from opposite sides.
Oh God.
Another imam from Toronto, he justified the killing of those who insult the prophets. And Imam from Brampton said that stoning is a purification of the soul. And another Imam, this Imam is a Shiite Imam in Quebec, and he explained why chopping off hands to thieves is more cost effective than putting them in jail. And you see, the very high cost of fighting crime and maintaining jail ruins the economy of the country. If one hand, two hands, or three hands are being chopped off, the people in the rest of the society will refrain from theft and the people will be in security. So this is the new economy.
Oh shit.
So we are talking about ISIL and ISIS in Iraq and Syria. The idea of the caliphate is here in Canada. And we have, according to the official data, is more than 130 people who are enjoying the jihad, many of them joined the caliphate. Those, as you see here, don't mind to kill their parents. So how many recruits are here in Canada who are ready to launch attack against the infidels, including their families? I would like to show a short video clip from featuring Farah Shridon from Calgary, the jihadist from Calgary, and what he said in an interview to
You're gonna need the stuff. Get the microphone.
Mobilize right now.
أمتي قد لاح فجر فارق بالنصر المبين دولة الإسلام قامت بدماء الصادقين أمتي قد لاح فجر فارق بالنصر المبين دولة الإسلام قامت بدماء الصادقين.
Hello?
Hi. So
Where are you right now?
we're in New York, and you're in Mosul.
Yes, I am.
How long have you been in Mosul?
About a month.
A
I was
month.
in Anbar before. I was in Anbar.
How did you get? How do you guys get recruited to go to fight in Syria and Iraq?
No one recruited me. Actually, no one spoke a single word to me.
No.
All I did, I opened the newspaper, I read the Quran. Very easy.
And you were
And someone actually came to me 5 or 6 days before I left.
in Canada.
Yeah, and this is the truth. All of their intelligence workers are imbeciles. FBI.
So the Canadian police.
No, Jesus.
CSIS. So CSIS interviewed you about going to Syria, being a terrorist. You said no, I'm
I can't
not.
believe how someone that has extremist terrorist ideologies is sitting in front of you and you're being captured. The next time they saw me ripping up my passport.
This is a message to Canada and all the American Tawagheet. We are coming and we will destroy you bidnillahi ta'ala. I made hijrah to this land for one reason alone. I left comfort for one reason alone. For Allah Azza wa Jal. And inshallah, after Shah